Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Welcome to Game Over Montreal, as Mark fixes something and he's bending over trying to be stealthy, but I'm going to show him on the screen anyway. If there's any audio issues tonight, please let me know. I'm trying a new mic setup because I was testing over the time. It's been 2 weeks since I've been on Game Over, Mark. It feels like forever. So I was testing during the break and I found that the mic sounds better in front of me versus off to the side. Is like a little bit muffled, so hopefully it sounds better for everyone today. If
Well, that's
not,
you know what, that's what you caught me. I noticed when the chat with Tim Turk, who, by the way, if anybody didn't have a chance, go check that chat out. It was a lot of fun. But I was yelling a lot, and I mean, I know I yell a lot, but I'm going to blame the mic on this one, or maybe it's the filter that fell off that I never bothered to put back up. Maybe.
It could be. And you know, frankly, for a game between two teams that are in the basement, pretty good game tonight. I think there's a lot to talk about. I saw some comments in the chat. Trizak was saying, "Can we talk about Jonathan Drouin without mentioning trade value?"
All day long.
I mean, I'm gonna disappoint you. We're gonna talk about the idea of trading Drouin,
but in
not
a good way,
because we're like get him off the team or anything like that, but because we want to see this continue for Drouin and him to have a chance to rebuild his career, frankly. But before we get into all the myriad of topics that this game provided us, because I feel like it's actually a surprising amount, especially in regards to the trade deadline, and we'll talk down all the tankers. That's what I'm going to start the show with. I got to tell you about Sports Interaction. Want to bet? Then get in on the action at Sports Interaction. The boys of summer are back on the diamond and March Madness is on deck. Bet pregame, live in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN, or in Ontario, download the app. There's a QR code at the bottom of the screen right now on my side. You can just scan it with your phone and it'll take you straight to the app. 19 plus, please play responsibly. All right, obviously, Mark, 3 games in a row here the Canadiens have won coming out of the break. The tankers are in shambles. They're just having a tough time. I saw a good buddy of mine on Twitter, Maxime Paiement, was talking about how his relationship with the Habs is an abusive one, and he's like done with them and because they're ruining the tank, and he just wants to see a franchise player in Montreal, which he hasn't seen, for his whole life. And I get it, but listen, guys, you're not talking about missing Bedard. We're talking about a couple percentage points less of a chance. The Canadiens aren't getting to 32nd overall this year. It's just not possible. Look at what Chicago is. We saw it tonight. They're not bad enough for that. And frankly, the Canadiens, if they want to get value for the players that they're going to trade at the deadline, they need games like this where those players play well. They need them to show. Like, it can't just be the Caulfield, Suzuki, Doc show all season long. They need the depth to come through for them. So these games, even if they might end up with a slightly smaller percentage chance at Bedard at the end of the day, are probably better overall for the franchise because of what you can get in trades than tanking for like a couple percentage points higher chance of Bedard. And what people aren't remembering is like Florida is still there. Like I've seen a lot of panic, Mark, about Florida getting better, which, by the way, they're down, I believe, 3-0 tonight. The Florida Panthers have played their 57th game of the season tonight. Every team around them is playing at a higher pace and has played fewer games. So there's still, even with the Panthers playing better hockey, a very high chance that they end up way lower in the standings than they are currently. So
can I go? Let me know when it's ready.
Panic.
Time for a rant, because what's happening in Chicago pushes the limits of sports integrity. And now, like, I understand tanking is important. Connor Bedard, by all accounts, really will change a franchise. But what they're doing isn't just embarrassing. It's almost insulting to their fans, because there's a limit between improving your odds and laying over and essentially throwing an entire season away. Embarrassingly, it's embarrassing what the Chicago Blackhawks are doing. So I think it's a lot more entertaining to be a fan of a team that's not embarrassing 82 times on the ice and still has odds to pick that number one guy. You provide entertainment, which is the basis of sports, which the Blackhawks are not doing. and you still have your odds towards that player. I get what the Hawks are doing. It's just it's gotten to the territory that it's gross, Andrew. This is like when the Penguins rolled over for Lemieux. It's like when the Senators rolled over for Deg. It's gotten to the point that it's just flat out embarrassing, in my opinion, for the Hawks and for the NHL.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Like, I understand the idea of it, but the other thing is, like, every team that's done what the Blackhawks are doing, that's gutted it so deeply. When you're trading like an Alex DeBrincat who's in his prime,
and a Doc, that's exactly that's what makes it bad.
Yeah, you get to a point where when your good players do make the league, you have no depth to support them. We've seen it in Buffalo. We've seen it in Edmonton, which I don't know if it was as intentional in Edmonton, but they were just run so poorly.
No, I think I think that just happened.
Yeah,
but I mean, there's someone in the chat here, like, for example,
it's hard.
Jake Emraz. Okay, so he's saying, like, I'm not embarrassed, trust the process, and I get that, Jake. I absolutely understand it. I know what the Blackhawks are doing long term might bring them value, but it might not. And in the meantime, I think we're allowed to point and say, like, this is bad, man. This is not what the spirit of sport is supposed to be, right? Yeah. Like, I don't think I'll get any pushback on that part.
No, and Jake is saying the NBA does it too. I mean, sure, but it's still bad for the sport, right? And, with the Canadiens winning the first overall last year, people will probably point and say, like, because they already won that. That's why you're saying this. But I've been saying for years and years that, in my opinion, every team that misses the playoffs should have the same odds to pick first overall. I don't think you should be rewarded for being bad on purpose.
But I mean, the Hawks are taking advantage of that, right? Like, they're playing within the context. So
and that's fine.
Like, I'm complaining about it being embarrassing, but this is the move that the NHL put on the table for the Blackhawks, right? It's be as bad as you can, and we'll reward you with a generational talent. So, I mean, there's that part. It's really hard to complain when they're doing what most fans would do in a video game. They're doing it in real life. So we'll see if it pays off. But for now, it's tough to watch.
It is. It's very tough to watch. And I think when you've got multiple teams doing this, Arizona has sold everything that's not latched down. Like, bolts.
Anaheim should be somehow worse, but they're not, because it's such a tough year to tank.
Yeah. I mean, going into this season, right, we all expected the Canadiens to be worse off than they are. I think, frankly, the way that they've played is more interesting to me for the future, because you see the building blocks there and you see the fight that they have. Like, I got to take my oldest son to the game thanks to you, Mark, on Sunday that you did.
Well, actually, thanks to a fantastic Habs fan. I'll get his name, but someone said, you know someone who needs tickets. So Andrew was that guy.
Yeah, I believe the first name was Jeff. I forget the last name, but I sent him a message on Twitter.
Yes, Jeff Park. Thank you, Jeff
Park. Yeah, so thanks to Jeff Park for setting that up. So Dylan got to see his first game on Sunday, and it's in a season like this, I expected, McDavid was going to run roughshod over them. So I was talking like, hey, you're going to get to see the best player in the world tonight. So the Montreal Canadiens are going to have to play really hard just to stay in the game, because they're not a great team this year. And then he was like all in on the Canadiens because they played so well against the Oilers. And then they went up 3-0. Oilers came back, got it to 3-2, thanks in part to some pretty shoddy refereeing. And then right after that, Harvey Pinard goes and makes it 4-2, and Dylan turns to me and he goes, the Oilers never should have messed with us, Dad.
That's where allegiances start to form there, you know what I mean?
100%.
I love that. But hey, man, that's just I'm so glad. I mean, I got a chance to see him at his first hockey game. It was the PWPHA showcase. And you could tell he had that kind of a like, well, okay, this is cool. This is an event. So I'm just glad there's nothing more important in hockey. And especially nowadays when the tickets are becoming a little unreasonable. This used to be kind of a rite of passage in Canada. So seeing a parent bring their kid to the game and them enjoying it, man, il y a rien de mieux que cela.
Yeah. And I think this is also something that people need to remember. Like, every single game that a team plays, there's kids in the audience watching their first game ever, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, yeah, tanking is great and all, and everybody wants Connor Bedard to be wearing the CH next season. Everybody. And if not him, Adam Fantilli or Matvei Michkov, whatever, or Carlson. Like, there's a lot of really good choices this year. But to have a good impression from a kid watching their first game, it means so much, right? And like sitting there and watching him clap for goals and like jump up and down and tell me like, this is so fun. Like,
being part of an event,
Exactly. Like he'd never been around 21,000 people before.
Hmm.
It's
And
a crazy thing to do.
important question was, is he still obsessed with the Zambonis?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Perfect. That's all
He
I
he
needed to
like
know.
he gave up eating in the first intermission because it was like his lunchtime. And he's like, "No, I need to see the Zambonis." It's like, well, I can't just leave you here and go get food. I can't
Yeah,
be an irresponsible parent. So we had to duck out at the end of the second period early so that I could go get him some food. But
perfect.
yeah, he needed to be there for the Zambonis. Loves the Zambonis. He thought it was too short with the two of them. He thought they should have been out there for longer. But kids love the Zambonis. But
Yeah.
I guess onto this game. Let's talk about Jonathan Drouin because
Oh,
what a
yes.
friggin' story. The thing that's impressing me the most right now about Drouin is usually when he gets hurt, when he comes back, it takes him like 10 or so games to not play tentative hockey.
Hmm.
And after coming back now, he's been like better than he's been at any point this season. And I think he was on that trajectory before he got hurt. And he's come back and hasn't missed a beat. He's been flat out incredible from a playmaking perspective. You know, not a flawless player, of course. We know that. Nobody's going to come in here and say that Jonathan Drouin is like a Selke Award winner or anything like that. But I think he's proving himself to himself and to others that he can still be a point producer in this league. I know he hasn't scored a goal, but look at the passes this guy's making.
It's and regardless of where this ends up, because we're not going to talk. You already brought up the possibility of a move there, but regardless of that or the future for Jonathan in Montreal, I'm glad that we're for a guy that was so open and honest about real life issues, because let's be perfectly honest, playing shooty puck doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. He was one of the few athletes that actually brought forth the importance of mental health and was honest enough to share that with the world. And let's be honest, people use that against him. So, and that's how it works in the world. Unfortunately, the leaders that speak about it, they're going to get dinged on it. So just to see him in his element and his just his happy place, you kind of get that vision of him learning to fall in love with hockey in the first place when he's younger, when the sound of the pucks hitting the boards at night, late at the rink. And that to me, it just makes me happy seeing a guy find that fire within him, the reason he fell in love with hockey in the first place. And yeah, it's great because the fans get to see it and all that, but I'm just particularly happy for one of the nicest people I've ever met. And regardless of what happens with Jonathan Drouin, he's just an important player, even if he doesn't get a single point, due to the fact that he brought the mental health conversation to the forefront. And I'll never, I won't be able to appreciate enough what he did for that. And I'm personally thankful. I know a lot of other people are thankful. And now that it's all coming together on the ice, I mean, that's just the way it should be with hockey. There's so much negative, there's so much criticizing, and getting to celebrate a guy that helps so many people, that is the point of sports.
Yeah, it really is. And I love what you brought up there, that by bringing up mental health and having issues in the past with mental health, people kind of weaponize that against him. And that's kind of why it's so important for people like Drouin to bring it up and to have like staunch defenders of him like Josh Anderson, right? Like every time that Drouin's been kind of brought up in the media, it's always seems like Josh Anderson's looking over his shoulder, like don't mess with my guy,
Right.
And I like that. And I find that is what strikes me as brave about Drouin, because it'd be easy to just hide. And on the last week's episode of the Hockey Inside Out show that I was on, Stu Cowan mentioned, and like Stu Cowan's no huge fan of Jonathan Drouin. I think some of his criticisms are a little bit unfair, but he made a point to mention that on games, especially road games, where you walk into the dressing room after the game and everybody's gone, Jonathan Drouin's always there. He's always there, whether he had a good game or a bad game, to talk to media, especially, to be there for Francophone media, to represent the team as one of the few Francophones on the team. The fact that after all this, he's still there at the forefront, willing to put himself in the crosshairs, basically, of everyone, it says a lot about the man. And,
Yeah.
now he's at 12 assists in the last 12 games.
And like, we'll get to the hockey. It's been
games.
really good, but I want to hit on that one more time.
Yeah.
when you're speaking about mental health as a celebrity, you're also, I mean, I know, okay, I'm not saying he's got a tough life, tougher than anyone else, but you're the most vulnerable person at that point, right? You're putting your vulnerability on full display. And in a sport, in hockey, where that's not only unheard of, it's kind of shunned upon. That's very, very important. And I'll end by saying this is he's one of the few players that's ever come up to me and asked me how I'm doing to make sure how I'm doing okay. And I think because I've had conversations with him about mental health, he remembered that. And to me, that goes to show that Jonathan Drouin, beyond what he can do in hockey, is a great person. And that type of person is worth celebrating. Every single time we had a charity event, or anytime you could interact with the fans, Jonathan Drouin stayed till the end. He signed every single card. He had earnest, honest conversations with kids. He was asking them about their game, how they scored, et cetera, et cetera. So genuinely a great human being. And when he smiles, that makes me very happy.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the thing when we're talking about trades, right? And we are going to talk about the idea of Jonathan Drouin might have built himself some trade value, right?
Maybe to a team that has a number 62 on it. Wouldn't that be fun, eh?
It would. And, I noticed tonight there was the pro scout for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Sorry, Trizak. We ruined it. We ruined our no trade thing already.
I know. But, I noticed the Tampa Bay Lightning had a pro scout in the audience tonight. Wouldn't it be a fun story to see Drouin go back to Tampa Bay?
Right?
And end up going on a long cup run after all that, requesting a trade. Obviously, management has changed there with Brisebois instead of Yzerman at the top, so maybe there's a little bit of a change of heart in how they view Drouin. So it would be kind of fun that way too. But I think the Avs are the most interesting one just because they're reuniting.
And they're missing a little firepower up front right now.
They are.
That's, yeah. Well, I'd see them on a second power play unit, hoisting the cup with Artturi Lehkonen. Now we're just living vicariously through Lehkonen because he did what we all wanted. But if guys like him and Dadonov, I know I'm about to get a lot of eye rolls, but Andrew, Dadonov, the points aren't coming, but he's been playing quite well in the last 2 weeks, in my opinion.
I would go back further than 2 weeks, honestly.
Almost January there. Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes we get stuck so deeply in narrative, right? Especially from the start of the season. If somebody has a bad start of the season, it takes a long time to move out of it. And nobody's really immune to it, especially when you're canoodling with a lot of people who think the same way. Talking in Habs media or whatever, I think there's kind of a pure pressure to be oh, well, this guy sucks. And therefore, I also think this guy sucks, even though maybe you don't, but you just kind of want to belong. And Dadonov is one of those guys where you mentioned that he'll have a great stretch of games and he has been great. And people are oh no, have you ever watched him? It's but are you still paying attention to these games? Because they're every game now, I look at Dadonov and I look at how hard he's working compared to the beginning of the year, and it's night and day.
Yeah. He's
just been way, way better.
I'd argue it's one of the biggest flaws in hockey analysis is that we tend to stamp a player and then let it go. In soccer, for example, throughout a season, they'll talk about who's the best, I don't know, center back or mid defense or attacking mid left. But for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, who's the best in form? Because they know it's ebbs and flows, right? Whereas in hockey, we just, boom, we stamp it 3 years ago and we call it a day. We're hey, boys, we got that analysis right. No, that's not how it works. At one point this year, Nick Suzuki was legitimately a number one center. And you could say that. He was one of the better centers in the NHL. It's not quite true anymore. And that's how hockey works. Ebbs and flows. And we tend to kind of really go back, as you said, we were really slow to move away from original criticism that again, the media is a big part of it too, because everyone just wants to agree with each other. But I would prefer a little more fluid analysis in hockey. So for example, Jonathan Drouin right now is the Montreal Canadiens' best forward. And if I put that on Twitter, I'd get massacred. Mais c'est vrai, là, c'est tellement vrai. So, that's to me one of the biggest flaws in hockey analysis, that we're just a little too slow to kind of catch up with how they've been playing recently.
Yeah, it is. And I think part of that is natural, right? Because you don't want to jump the gun and have a guy have one good game. You're oh, look, he's back. But at the same time, once a guy started to put things together for a long stretch, and I find usually the good play starts happening before the points start happening. And we saw that with Dadonov. We saw that, I think, with Drouin. Earlier
we saw with
in the
Hoffman
season
at the beginning of the year. Everyone was on his back, 100%. But he was playing really well. Really well. Yeah.
And, this is kind of one of those areas where I have to give credit to Marty St. Louis, where he continually has been patient with his veteran players, putting them in positions to succeed as much as he can to get the best out of them, and it continues to be successful. Drouin, Dadonov, Hoffman, all those guys have had, brutal starts by the counting numbers.
Dvorak,
Dvorak. Yeah, Dvorak showing signs of life now. He's been pretty strong lately. Like that line, Drouin, Dvorak, and Armia, I thought was their best line tonight.
They're at over 90 expected goals. I guarantee it. I didn't look, but I guarantee it.
Yeah, Drouin tonight said 94.
Wow.
94 and a quarter.
But I mean, the overall picture here is that this is a blessing for Kent Hughes. So I know we talked about tanking and all that, but if you're a team that's looking for, depth, which is half the teams going into the playoffs, you're going to start looking at these guys, and the Canadiens can hold back 50%. That's the whole point of this season, of trying to hold on to, not bring on too much salary, is to maintain that for they're not accruing salary, obviously, because they're in LTIR, but they want to maintain that so they can take some back. And Dadonov at 50% retained suddenly looks a lot more, and Drouin at 50% retained looks a lot more entertaining as a depth guy, rather than the guy that you use all your cap space to acquire. So this is good news for the Canadiens, and I'm sorry, and bad news for Trizak, but the deadline's coming, man. And it seems like right now, some teams are getting greedy. I don't know if you saw the price for the Columbia, I forget his name. Anyways, the prices are ridiculous. So teams will start to look for secondary and tertiary options, and that's where these guys, even Dvorak, starting to play like that center that they thought they got a while ago, might start getting some bites.
Yeah, and we should say, like, the idea of trading Drouin isn't so that the Canadiens can get a haul, right? I think based on his last few seasons and his injury struggles,
you want to give him a new lease on his career.
Yeah, it's not about getting like a first-round pick. That's not going to happen. It is literally about giving him a chance to get to the point where we all thought he could get at some point, right? Yeah. And the other thing is with Drouin right now, he's 31 games played this year, 17 assists, so he's over a half point a game. I know he hasn't scored, but just by evolving hockey's expected goal ratio, he should have 4 goals this year. If Sounds Jonathan Drouin had 21 points in 31 games this year, like, is anybody disappointed with his play?
He would be one of the most productive Canadiens forwards, right? I mean, it's...
Yeah, but he already is, frankly.
To me, and we'll have to actually get to some of the games, there's a lot to talk to, but when it comes to Drouin, a lot of people have asked me, do you try to sign him for Bobon Pacha next year? Good, like, really cheap. I would, but to me, I think it'd be better for Jonathan Drouin to move on. And it's just because... like the ground has been salted here, and it's not his fault, but it's just the way he was presented to the media by Bergevin originally, and now he can do no good in some people's eyes. So for Jonathan Drouin, I think the best call is looking to greener pastures than Montreal, unfortunately. But hey, if it ends on a positive note, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, 100%. I would love to see him have a nice playoff run. I mean, look at his career in the playoffs so far. He's always brought it, right? So it'd be nice to get him that lease on life. Joel Armia has been great lately too. Again, another guy coming back from injury who hasn't missed a beat. Obviously, benefited from Drouin's play tonight as well, but also set up Dvorak's goal with some nice plays. He set up Jordan Harris's second goal against Edmonton.
Yeah,
which with a really nice play at the blue line to kind of draw in the defender and open up some space.
Kent Hughes is all smiles right now,
right? Here's something I want to bring up just quickly. When Jordan Harris spoke out about hockey is for everyone and how like it's kind of bullshit and it's not really that way in hockey.
When he spoke
culture.
The truth, yeah,
when he spoke the truth, of course, and huge props to him for doing that. Not only as like person of color in general, but the fact that he's a rookie.
Oh, that's
it's hard to do that as a rookie. And then immediately after that, there was like a bunch of people from different markets being like, "Oh man, he's gonna get traded now. Montreal's not gonna like him." I'm like, I don't think you understand the current management structure. No. And then he immediately gets signed to an extension, which I know would have been happening the last several months, whatever.
Yeah.
But like the timing is amazing. And then he goes out and has his best game of the year against the Oilers.
And for those that didn't have a chance to hear him speak with Miker Guerrier, he had a whole conversation of the Black History Month, the Canadiens tape this whole conversation. It's very important. Go take a look at it. Hey, listen, I know that I've had my issues with the Canadiens in the past, but I'm going to go ahead and say this: they are very forward thinking in a lot of their approach to hockey, and they're learning. Listen, they're not perfect, but they are learning now with the change of management. There's been a certain reinvigoration of people trying to, obviously keep different groups in mind. And I'll say this: the players will never be punished for any of that, and the team likes it when they speak out because they have to be leaders in our community. So it's really important. I hate sometimes when it's, for example, I mean, Jordan Harris is a person of color. There's very few in the NHL, and I hate how we constantly turn and say, hey, can you fix the issues, but I think the way the Canadiens did it by having an open conversation, Georges Larac was there as well, it's a good way to open up the debate, or not the debate, but for people to learn without necessarily putting the onus of fixing the issue on the speaker, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of like letting them say their piece without being like, hey,
fix
what
racism,
do you think we should do, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's such a thing, especially during Black History Month. Like, I talked to Julian McKenzie the other day, just like, because, we're two white guys, Mark. We will stumble at times not understanding things.
No, it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of listening and learning.
Always, right? And I reached out to him and I was like, hey, Julian, like, if somebody contacts you to do like a guest spot
this month
during Black History Month, do you feel that that's like tokenistic? And I was like, or does it like kind of depend on the situation? He was like, it definitely depends. About like, is it somebody who's reached out to me before, right? So like, if it's somebody you've never talked to before, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, you want to do this, and it happens to be Black History Month, it feels a little bit different, right? So it's being conscious of all those little things at the same time, and learning from different perspectives. It's a challenge that we have to take on, right? Head first, you have to dive in.
Absolutely. And I know there's some people working on the scenes really hard to make it happen. Sebastian Jackson, let's talk on, just sent a message there. Let's talk on Twitter. I can get you in contact with the right people. So I don't know what the history's been there with that, but I know the people, and I'd be glad to try to help as a conduit to that. And by the way, those jerseys, those warm-up jerseys, woo, like the opposite of the retro reverse, because they're gorgeous, they're well thought out, and man, like another thing I would like to say, people will go and try to buy them if they're available, and they're always expensive. There's actually a good reason. For once, the teams aren't being greedy. The needle thread count and the work done in those jerseys is very expensive, because it's a lot more work than the regular jerseys. So that's pretty much the reason why those specialty jerseys are so darn expensive. Unfortunately, it's just a reality of the product.
My only complaint about those specialty jerseys, and it's the same with the one they did for like I think it was like Indigenous History last year, is I wish they would make a full jersey. Yes. Yeah, and I wish they would make a full jersey instead of a practice jersey, because I would friggin' drop coin on that. Like, it was so beautiful. And I feel like if they could just do the whole kit like in that color scheme, that design scheme, it would sell like crazy. I know it would obviously be more expensive as well, but I just want them to go from the good job they're doing to like the next stage and actually throw together
keep in mind jersey. These are all done by marketing teams, and the whole point of marketing is it's still to make the money. So there's that, like, and that was a huge sticking point with me in Montreal. Like I'll admit I was kind of complaining a lot about it, but so there is a fine balance to be done. And as Noel mentions here, this learning, this listening has to be done all year round. So that's the key part there, because it's great to celebrate Black history, very important, but being a good person isn't limited to sponsored events.
100%. I know there was a comment from Trizak earlier on in the stream as well, asking if we could talk about Jonathan Kovacevic.
Oh God,
I've been kind of beating the drum for him all season long. Not
big
really
Kovacevic
loudly,
fan,
but the dude is just solid.
Mm-hmm.
I really like him. I don't know if he has a future beyond being like a third pairing defenseman, but like I think he's a solid NHLer. I don't see any major issues with this game, maybe like a lack of finishing. But what I like about him more than anything, I think, is like when he makes a mistake, he's always there fixing it. Like he just stays with plays all the time.
I stated that he's their most reliable defenseman, bar none. And I include Mike Matheson in that because Kovacevic has stayed healthy. Now, I know it's a little rough on Matheson, but like when Matheson's in the lineup, man, the Montreal Canadiens, look different. They're a different team. It's like when Prime Petrie was there. But Jonathan Kovacevic has been there the entirety of the time, and he's been a healthy scratch when he's been the Canadiens statistically their best defenseman. So that's a little rough on your brain too, right? But just hearing him speak, first of all, what a smart, intelligent person. He thinks about the question before he answers, which is something we should all aspire to do. He's reliable, and he makes Jordan Harris look good. They work well together. I agree. He's kind of like Josh Georges. He's never going to put the puck in the net, but he actually has a better shot. He's been unlucky there. Statistically speaking, Jonathan Kovacevic has been their most reliable, dependable defenseman. And I think you have to include him when you talk about goalie, you talk about Harris, you talk about Xhekaj. You got to include Kovacevic in there because out of all of them, he's had the best numbers. So to me, I mean, it's great that the Jets aren't missing him, but man, what a waiver claim. Like he's got that Paul Byron potential to be like those idiots put him on waivers. It doesn't look bad now, but it could in the future because I see him having a potential to have, many, many serviceable years in Montreal.
Yeah, Trizek brings up that it was Rock Smasher, not him that brought up Kovacevic. So shout out to Rock Smasher in the chat.
Yeah, Rock Smasher by the way, brings up great ideas in this chat. It's like 50 times.
The chat
now.
That we have, we're lucky,
eh?
Because we have amazing people here.
I'm just making mistakes all the time, and they're like, "No, Mark, it's this." Or there was one with Tim. I'm like, "No, the chat will correct me because I made a mistake," and then 10 seconds later,
there they are. But I got to tell you, as amazing as everyone is, you got to like the stream, folks. We got over 100 people here and not enough likes on the video. Make sure you like the video. Help us grow. Make sure you subscribe to SDPN. Ring the notification bell for everything. We need your help, We got to keep this thing going. Have some fun.
How do you do, fellow youth? Yeah. No, we're lucky because even Super Bowl weekend, there was a ton of people around, which was just like, that's cool to me. That's always cool that people take time to actually listen to us rant about excellent players like Alex Belzile. Am I allowed to get excited about Alex Belzile? Because
I wanted to ask you, Mark, as somebody who, from before most people had even heard of him, was pushing Alex Belzile as not just a player who deserved to play in the NHL and get a shot at the NHL, but just a great story. How satisfying is it to watch him out there setting up plays, scoring his first goal, and just the guy just doesn't make mistakes. He is clinical.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hey, King of the North, that's like the 5th time you criticize how often I talk. I'm sorry, buddy. That's just me. So just take it down a notch with the criticism. For Alex Belzile, the thing with him is that, as you say, there's nothing that stands out like crazy. But not only is it a great story, is that he's very, very smart. You'll notice he makes very few mistakes on the ice. So his anticipation and his ability to be at the right place at the right time kind of makes up for that lack of speed. Almost in a Jake Evans type, mold, but on the wing. So to me, when you're looking at his points, his underlying numbers are great. He creates high danger chances, but there's nothing that sticks out about Alex Belzile, except obviously the dedication, the effort. And one thing I will say is that we're kind of avoiding talking about Michael Pezzetta because he's almost old news, but Michael Pezzetta has been looking really, really good too. So he got reinvigorated when Raphaël Harvey-Pinard joined. And now that he's on the top line, him and Belzile are working very, very well. Hard work on the 4th line, but smart work. And that's what defines Alex Belzile, an intelligent player. So I'm just beyond happy for him right now.
100%. And by the way, King of the North said that he was just trying to be funny. He didn't mean it to come across as harsh criticism. So everybody's happy. The vibes are good in here. And what impresses me so much about Belzile is that intelligence. And the fact is, like, he's going into the corner with you. He might not get there first on the puck. Gonna outwork you though.
Yeah.
Every time.
And we're seeing, as a guy that in Laval, I'll tell you right now, it's really tough to be in Laval and being 28, 29. And all these guys that are scoring less than you are getting called up after you or before you. And then you have to turn around and make it good for them in the room. Like, he was like the father of the Laval Rocket locker room, but at the same time, he knew, I'm fighting with these guys. I'm going to help them as much as I can, but I'm also going to make that jump. So that's a really tough juxtaposition between being a mentor and being, someone that wants to display his own skill. So there was a lot of that. All those stories written in Laval was, such a great mentor. But you know what's going through his head when he reads that is, I'm more than just a mentor for these old guys. Like, I'm still fighting for my spot. So I'm just so glad that he got a chance to prove it. And hey, man, that's 6 points in 8 games on the 4th line.
It's pretty good.
I think other than well, Drouin now, but I think Drouin and Belzile are the Canadiens' hottest scorers, right? Like that's
And Harvey
statistically
Pinard.
speaking. Yeah, and Arber Xhekaj. But either way, 6 points on the or fourth line is very, very difficult. So like, let's give him some credit there. I don't know where we go with from here, but I'm just happy because every time he had that story about him being a mentor, I know he hated it. He really hated it. But deep down inside, he was telling himself, "I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it." And when I interviewed him for the Athletic, like the minute he came to Laval, he said, "I'm not giving up until I make it." And he's like, "And when I make it, I'm going to stay there." So it's all kind of coming true, and pure heart and dedication on Alex Bez. Like it's the stuff dreams are made of for hockey stories.
100%. I was worried today was going to be like a bit of a rough game, so I had written down like Arber Xhekaj being out and whether we should talk about that, but I don't even know if that's a topic right now. Like,
I have thoughts on that. I'm going to write about it tomorrow for Montreal Hockey Now, but he's fighting too often. That's what I'm going to like. I feel like all of Montreal is living vicariously through Arber Xhekaj for the last 30 years of insecurity issues. If you know
yeah,
what I mean.
there is a lot of that. Although I feel like his fight where he got injured against the Oilers was not instigated by him. Like I feel like he really
No.
didn't have much of a choice there. The Oilers were trying to find a spark. Evander Kane was out there being an idiot. I will say, I know it's not about this game specifically, but it was very satisfying. I don't know if they showed it on the broadcast, but after Evander Kane scored his kind of like lucky slingshot goal to make it 3-2 on Sunday, he went and like started chirping at Canadiens players on the ice and like chirped the entire bench on the way back. And then the Oilers did nothing the rest of the game. Allowed 3 straight goals. So that was extremely satisfying for somebody who has followed Evander Kane's shenanigans for a long time.
Arber Xhekaj provided a lot of that this year, right? Like a lot of just like, okay, we're losing, but man, at least there's that entertainment factor, and we're gonna beat the crap out of you. Let's be honest, the Canadiens have been pushed around for 30 years, like honestly, at least. And from going back to the PJ Stock days, where they brought him in and they're like, look, go fight. They brought in a laundry list of guys that were just hired mercenaries. To see a guy like Arber Xhekaj be able to kind of pull a Lyle Odeline, even though he's better than him, and provide good hockey, that's fun to see. But I'd like them to maybe pull back on the whole idea that he's going to go out and destroy everyone. He's not the biggest guy in the league. He's not the toughest guy in the league. He's one of the. But we have to keep in mind, he fought 9 times this year, Andrew. I know, like, most people in their lives don't get into a fight. And those that do, trust me, it hurts. It hurts, especially when you got a big old jaw like this, So like, we're keeping in mind that this is risky what they're doing with Xhekaj. I'd like to see them maybe pull back a little bit, or maybe him just saying, no, you know what? I don't have to prove myself anymore. I've proven myself already.
Yeah, 100%.
Because there's pressure, right? There's pressure on him from, make your space, but I think he's carved his space already.
In the modern NHL, fighting in almost double digits per season is not common.
No.
Right? And I know that's part of like being a rookie and being so tough that guys want to test him. But like fighting Vincent Desharnais, who is 6'6", he is over a foot taller than David Desharnais. Like it's not the same Desharnais. And guys that like Xhekaj is a big guy, but he's not 6'6" big. So when you're giving up reach advantages, all that stuff, it becomes a slog, and he doesn't need to be doing that anymore. He's already proved himself. He can.
Well, that's exactly. I think he needs to get away from the whole like I have to go out there and fight every night, because it's too much for anyone. 10 fight, like I don't know if you saw him lately. Black eye, busted shoulder, like. Man, these guys at the best of times are already hurt fighters. They go to bed worrying about the guy they're going to have to punch next game, because it's intense getting into a fight. They'll get sick over it the night before. If you read any of the stories of enforcers, like it's tough mentally off the ice as well. So I love what he's doing, and it's fun. And don't get me wrong, I get excited when there's a fight, but I'd love to see a little, pump the brakes a little bit on him having to fight all the toughest guys in the league.
100%. All right. I don't know if there's much else to talk about tonight. Obviously, Justin Barron and David Savard scored as well. We didn't talk about that, but
Justin Barron, we didn't. Yeah,
Justin Barron's been so great.
Oh,
like, man, it's so wild when you think about it. The Canadiens went into this season with 4 rookies on defense, and no one has disappointed. And then they called up Justin Barron, so they're now on their 5th rookie on defense.
Yeah,
he hasn't disappointed. Like, everyone has been as good or better than I think expectations were at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. Like the Canadiens' depth in terms of prospects and young players on defense is incredible.
but it's not incredible on the right side, which is why it's so important for Justin Barron to hit, right? Like
This
when you were
is
looking,
also
you're,
true.
you're right. There's such a like the laundry list of guys on the left. I think there's Madison Bowie right now that's playing on the right in Laval. Every other guy is left. So not only is Justin Barron important because he could be a power play quarterback. By the way, he was the only other guy other than Xhekaj that scored a power play goal on a defenseman as a defenseman. Just goes to show. Right-handed, great at puck retrievals, great in transition. Like he checks so many boxes for the Canadiens that they have to hit on Barron. That's why he's so important. To see him emerge is absolutely great. One thing here someone asked about, Claire, what did you think about Josh Anderson going about after Suzuki in general? I hate those kind of fights. That I had absolutely no problem with it. None whatsoever.
And it's like the third game in a row where people have been gunning for Suzuki. Him and Doc are the only guys who are like your star guys left at forward. You kind of have to lay the hammer down a little bit. And with Xhekaj out of the lineup, Josh Anderson stepped up. And I think, we're talking about trade value. Every GM that already has a hard on for Josh Anderson saw that fight and had a huge check mark beside him more.
They stayed sitting. I'll tell you that much there.
They had the binder in front.
Right?
The old middle school move.
And like Murphy didn't deserve to get his ass whooped by Anderson, but that's why the instigator exists. To me, that was him setting the tone, saying like, listen, we're not going to go, quietly into the night. There's something for a team that lacks motivation or maybe even something to fight for. I think Anderson kind of set the tone there. And I get it. A lot of people are probably rolling their eyes and saying that's a useless fight. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, but in a vacuum for that one game, it set the tone for the Canadiens. And I think you saw they upped their intensity after that. And this is an argument that I've laughed at in the past, but in this particular case, I think it was very much true that Anderson showed a little bit of a bite back and then the rest of the team followed. So it sucks for Connor Murphy because that was actually a really nice check. And I'll say, man, Suzuki's a tough guy because I've never seen him stay on the ice after a hit. Like he got all of Connor Murphy. He absolutely obliterated Suzuki, bounced right back up. Man, yep. He's tough. He's tough, that kid.
He is. And you know what? We were talking about Michael Pezzetta. His hit on Max Domi was pretty great as well.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he's lucky he didn't just get suckered by. Oh no, Domi only does that to non-fighters, right? But yeah, I'll say one thing. One of the Johnsons that plays for Chicago, I don't know which one, going after Pezzetta. 30
of them.
Yeah, Johnson, B Johnson, no, not Bert Johnson,
And the game's being commented on by Mike Johnson, who was the best Johnson in the game, frankly.
I'll say this though, going after Pezzetta at the end of the shift, bit greasy, but then getting did you notice that Pezzetta basically okay, take 12 body shots, I'm tired. All right, here we go.
He was holding them out as far as he could, and he was just like, that's all I can do.
It's like, I'm tired, man. For those that have never gone all out in a shift and then fought, you're already at zero energy, right? So that I thought was pretty darn embarrassing. Picking a fight at the end of his shift, at the end of the game, and then getting the tar beat out of you. Eesh, not a good look.
Basically, if you want to know how that feels, run a suicide or two and then try to fight.
Yeah, like a beep test. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Or go wrestle for 2 minutes and then try to fight. You have no energy. So yeah, that was hey man, at least we'll see. I'm glad to see Pezzetta now. His role is a little bit more established. I know it sucks that Xhekaj's injured, but I felt bad when Pezzetta was kind of pushed out of that. So hey man, it's always fun to see a guy that worked that hard to make it get his have a role in the NHL.
100%. All right, we're gonna cut it here because frankly, it's a game between two basement dwellers, and we got to get to sleep. And we got another game coming up right away on Thursday here. But before I let you go, obviously Mark's gonna be back on Thursday again, and then Saturday, you're on the schedule.
But hey, are you about to shout out our chat? Because from King of North to Paper Dolls to Thomas to Trinak to everyone are amazing. Like seriously, we're beyond lucky to have this kind of crowd with us, eh?
We are.
Kay is just okay though. She's just okay.
Kay, yeah, she's the one who's been here from the very beginning. Yeah, we got to give Kay her flowers, absolutely, especially on Valentine's Day. I was going to say,
Kay asks, is Sammy nice? Sami Zayn is one of the nicest guys I've ever met, and I know we're going long. And actually, Andrew, would be pretty cool if we could get him on our show, but I don't know. I brought him.
May have an update about that soon.
Oh, so I brought him up to the press box because he came for the Habs during the power play, and actually the Habs got mad at me for. Anyways, that doesn't matter. And he turned into a little boy because he was like, "Oh my god, this is where you work. This is so cool." He started pointing out where he was when Bret Hart during the Montreal screw job, and he's like, can I sit at your seat? And he's like, no way, this is your job. This is so cool. And I'm like, man, this beast of a man turned into a 12-year-old boy the minute he got brought up to the press box. And to me, that's just amazing. You know what I mean? He went from a WWE superstar to every 10-year-old boy or girl watching their first game live. So that was and he's honestly a great person. Take a look at his charities. Few people match the how real of a person Sami Zayn is. Just a very, very, very good person.
Yeah, Sami Zayn's the best, and he's going to be WWE champion very soon.
I mean,
probably this weekend,
unless we have Montreal Screwjob.
Oh God, I hope not. Imagine
he was there in the stands, and now he's.
Don't do it. Don't tempt the WWE. They are shitty enough to do that.
Montreal can take one, but not two. You want to riot in a season where the Habs aren't making the playoffs? That's how you get it.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that that night is going to be all about the WWE for sure for a lot of people, especially in Montreal, because it's a huge event in Montreal. And I actually was going to go, and then I realized that night is also the night that I set to do the Hot Ones Gauntlet with Adam Wilde, Habs Leafs. So we're going to do that. That's going to be really fun. That's also my birthday. So I'll be turning 36 and destroying my digestional tract, which is always fun. And
you're about to learn what happens after 35 is that your intestines and you are no longer friends. Like, you're like, it's going to be an eternal battle. Just letting you know.
100%. Although, you know what? I did it last year with Julian, and it wasn't that bad. The worst part is the lips. The lips were brutal. So hopefully that's the worst part this time as well. I'm going to do the lip chap before and maybe midway through just to help myself there. But
that's
last time I went
must watch with Adam Wilde. That'll be fun.
Yeah, he's going to need some antacids. Guy who thinks cereal is spicy. But last time I went the whole way... Last time I went the whole way without having any drinks. Julian and I both did it together, and then we had a drink together at the end, which was gross because it was milk that had been sitting out for an hour.
That's actually the best technique, right? Because there's a science behind it. You don't take water. That's actually a great technique.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to do that again. We'll see. I'm not gonna hold myself to it because I've already proved myself. So I don't have anything to prove this time, but I am going to go the whole way, as always. And then after that show, it's going to be all Mark all the time for a stretch because I've got a small surgery. So you guys will have lots of fun with that. There's lots of cool big guests coming up.
Well, one of them I just confirmed today will be Dave Jackson, former NHL referee, Montreal native. So, and you're all going to have to behave when Dave Jackson here. He's obviously ESPN's referee specialist. Great guy. So we're going to get into a little bit of that with Dave Jackson, talk about bias in the NHL. That should be fun.
It's going to be extremely fun. I'm going to be shit talking in the chat and Robert's going to be modding me.
Right. So Noel asks, how old is Mark? Let's just put it this way. I bought the pour some sugar on me laser disc, not the CD, like the laser disc. Okay. So you can Google that when Def Leppard released their laser disc, but I owned it. Just put it that way.
Yeah, 100%. Kay says Andrew going on IR. That's right. Not quite LTIR. I won't be out that long, but we'll have lots of cool stuff coming.
Originally, Andrew was like, I'll be good in like a few days. Like, buddy, they're ripping out some parts of your mouth. It's going to take a little bit longer than a few days. Let's put it that way.
Just a little part of my jaw. That's okay.
Just minor major surgery,
Just for a guy who talks for a living, great thing to have in the middle of the season. But hey, I'm supposed to have got it done like 4 years ago, so I'm finally getting it done. That's a good thing. All right, Mark, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Make sure you like the video. If you really like it, definitely share it on your favorite social media, whatever one floats your boat, and subscribe to Game Over here on the SDPN YouTube channel. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you can get your podcasts. And yeah, if you really like us, hit us up on Twitter as well. We're always, open books. You can ask us any question. We try to get to everything we can in the chat. If we missed you, we're sorry, but we appreciate every single comment, every single person who watches the show. You're all amazing.
We're lucky.
We do this for
lucky.
you.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll see you on Thursday.
Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.